Here are 8 free plugins you absolutely need to try out. ML Sound Labs is a free MIDI drum VST that has one of the best sounding snares I've heard from a free plugin. It also comes with a bunch of great features that other paid for plugins like Superior Drummer and Get Good Drums often have, like the ability to send or remove different tracks from the overhead and room mics, so you could for instance choose to only send the shells to the room mics or take these out of the overheads entirely to give yourself more control over the cymbals. It also comes with built-in compression and saturation on every track in the mixer, so you could easily dial in these effects to individual tracks or directly on the master bus itself. So to test out what these drums sound like without any additional mixing done on my end, I've loaded up the stock preset and programmed some drums over these unprocessed tracks. Take a listen to how these sound and how you could make them sound even better with a little more processing done to each channel. Buster SE is a recreation of the classic SSL G-Series Master Bus compressor. This style of VCA compression has become a favourite of mine, and I rarely mix a song without it. My go-to for this would normally be Slate's version, the FG Grey. I was curious how this free version by Analog Obsession would compare to a more expensive plugin modelling the same style of compression, so I've added both plugins to my master bus and tried my best to match each setting so they're more or less doing the same thing. Obviously there'll be slight differences between the two, but I think comparing them side by side, there isn't a great deal of difference in sound. Take a listen to this example and let me know what you think. Try to focus on the drums in particular here, as that's the main reason I'm using this compressor on my instrumental bus. Sticking with Analog Obsession for a moment, they also had the Brit bundle, which features recreations of classic Neve style gear like the 1073 preamp and EQ. I love using these to splat out the drum transients of my kick and snare, and again I'd normally opt for the Slate version of this particular preamp, so let's take a listen to a comparison between the two, and you'll have to let me know which one you prefer. TSE's BOD is a bass processing unit that sounds great on bass DI tracks. It works well being placed directly on the track and then just messing around with a few settings until you find a sound you like. Or you can split your bass up by duplicating the DI track and filtering it into different frequency ranges. Then apply BOD to one or all of these tracks for greater control over the bass signal as a whole. The drive knob in particular is one of my favourites for getting a bass track to cut through a more densely arranged mix. Get the flagship mixing course, unlimited mixing feedback and 50 free mastered songs with the Sage Audio membership. Seats are limited, so secure yours now with the link in the description. Supermassive is a delay and reverb plugin that does exactly what's in the name. It features 20 different modes along with a ton of helpful presets to get you started. This one is great for producers and mixers alike, and has now become one of my go-tos for any sound design or ear candy element of a mix. For instance, I use Supermassive for all the reverb and delay throws during this first section.
The feelings are too big sometimes, so maybe all I do here is projecting.
It also has one of the nicest, cleanest chorus sounds I've heard in a plugin. I love using this on pop style vocals to give them that added layer of polish. You can find this preset by clicking the drop down menu, hovering over the mod section, locating the chorus menu, and then clicking on chorus slap. I usually leave all the settings at default and just dial in the amount of this effect using the mix knob on the left hand side of the plugin window.
I know that there's a break, but I don't want to catch it. I'll keep my head down, but still I can't look past it. I know that there's a break, but I don't wanna catch it. I'll keep my head down, but still I can't look past it.
Pulverizer is a processing unit combining distortion, compression, modulation and more, all into one handy plugin. Now this one only comes stock with Reason, however since their most recent update, Reason now works as a VST itself within any other DAW, so you can use all of their inbuilt effects in Logic, Reaper, Pro Tools and so on. Personally, this has become one of my go-tos for parallel compression. The combination of features I previously mentioned help to give your drum tracks in particular a nice size and sustain, so that once you mix this back in with your original dry drum signal, it really feels like the drum track as a whole. Tape bus is an analog emulation that replicates the saturation and compression characteristics of a magnetic tape recorder. This one in particular is more focused on smoothing out the high end of your tracks, rather than giving you that low end bump that is a common characteristic of a lot of other tape emulation plugins. I find this to be really helpful on smoothing out harsh sounding tracks, or just giving a more even top end when applied to the master bus. When using this, I like to slide the fader all the way up to 10, and then enable emphasis. Then use the button towards the bottom of the plugin window to control how steep a high shelf cut is applied. So basically, the more clockwise you turn this button, the darker and smoother your high end becomes. Take a listen to it on the master bus here, paying close attention to how the shakers are affected, and how this in turn makes the bass and kick drum sound more forward in the mix. DC1A3 is a compressor made by Kleinhelm, making use of a few specific settings from one of their paid-for compressors. But that doesn't mean this plugin isn't worth getting, as it has a ton of great features and different compression styles to suit almost any need. You have the 4 buttons at the bottom. Deep activates a sidechain high-pass filter to preserve the low end, while Relax provides gentler compression with longer time constraints and less saturation. Dual Mono disables the stereo link, allowing separate compression on the left and right channels, and Negative offers an alternative compression curve with negative ratios for more aggressive pumping compression effects at higher input settings. With that said, I often find myself applying this compressor on percussion elements, making use of the negative setting, so that once you increase the input level, it'll start increasing the quieter parts of the signal, along with bringing up the room and ambient sounds of the recording. As I mentioned earlier, get the flagship mixing course, unlimited mixing feedback and 53 mastered songs with the Sage Audio membership. Seats are limited, so secure yours now with a link in the description.